We're going to be making some beer today, and let's take a look at the ingredients. Got some specialty grains, some hop pellets, some liquid malt and some dried malt, a little bit of yeast, 5 gallons of water, and about 4 bags of ice that we're going to be using later. Over here on the equipment, we've got a 6.5 gallon glass carboy. Wow, we've got a delicious beer, very important. Have a couple different thermometers. Have a thief, which we're going to use later, along with our hydrometer. We have an auto starting siphon, and a spoon, some hose, that sort of stuff. Over here on our stove we have a 5 gallon brew pot. So let's get started. Our first step is to take 2 gallons of water and put it in our brew pot.
Put some ambiance music in.
Today, for some reason in my mind, 2 of those would get a fill.
Now we're putting in some of these specialty grains into a little bag here that's going to let the flavor seep out but keep the grains in. We don't want those floating around in our beer.
Beer tea bag.
Yes, it's a giant beer tea bag. Okay, our next step is to drop our little tea bag full of specialty grains into the water here and start our stove going. Got a nice little digital thermometer here that's going to let me measure the water temperature, but it's going to set off an alarm if it gets too hot, which is good because we want to keep this between approximately 160 and 170 degrees. The sugars that are being produced right now by steeping the grains in the water are going to contribute to non-fermentable sugars, which will actually make the beer sweeter, because those sugars will stay in the beer until the beer is actually finished. So we've removed the bag of the specialty malts, and now we're just waiting for our water to boil here. That now contains those non-fermentable sugars, and once the water boils we're going to go ahead and add all of our malts. I'm putting the malt extract inside of the pot here, and that's going to warm it up to get all the stuff on the inside out so that we don't have any malt extract still stuck in the inside of the can. Okay, it is time to add the liquid malt extract now that our water's come to a boil here. Once the malt goes in there, you're going to want to stir it to make sure that it doesn't burn the bottom. Now I'm adding the dried malt. Now we're going to wait for all this to come to a boil, and once that starts boiling, we can add in our hops. You can see we have a rolling boil going here. It's time to add in the hops now. My first hop is going to be some bittering hops, and that's going to create the bittering to counteract the malty flavor of all the malts we put in so far. Now those hops are going to be in there for the full 60 minutes that we boil the beer. And throughout the 60 minutes we're going to add 2 additional hops. While the beer is boiling, I'm going to go ahead and sanitize some of the equipment like this 6.5 gallon glass carboy that we're going to be using to make the beer. Right, this is our sanitizing solution we're going to be using. And we just take about a gallon of water and a tablespoon of this stuff, and this will clean out all of our containers. Everything is going to contact the beer after it's done boiling, so we want it to be sanitized. Now we're going to add the Cascade pellet hops because it's been 30 minutes. We are putting in the Fugal hops, which are going to give a wonderful aroma to our beer. Alright, let's do it. Alright, so 15 more minutes of boiling, and the wort here, as it were, will be ready to be put into a nice ice water bath to cool it down so that we can put it in our fermenter where it will sit and become beer soon.
Blinking, right?
Okay, now we are cooling the beer by submersing it in a bath of ice. We need our beer to go below 80, preferably somewhere close to 70 degrees, before we're ready to move it into our glass carboy. Okay, so now that the beer is cooled down to below 80 degrees, we're going to siphon it into our carboy here. So at this point, it's okay to aerate the beer, and that's what we're trying to do here, because that's going to let some oxygen into the beer. Okay, so now we're going to pour the rest of the water in. And all this water that we're adding is going to bring the total size of our batch of beer here up to 5 gallons. Before we go ahead and pitch the yeast, which is our last step at this phase, we're going to take our plastic thief here and our hydrometer, take a quick hydrometer reading, which is going to tell us our potential alcohol content of the beer here. Alright, you're going to want to shake up your yeast before you pitch it, which you can see everything is pretty well shaken up there. Alright, now our yeast is ready to go and drink our delicious beer. Last thing we're going to do is put on this airlock, which is going to seal off the beer from outside air getting in and allow the gases inside to escape. It's been close to 48 hours now, and our beer is starting to ferment. We can see the airlock right here shows an awful lot of activity, and there's a solid stream of bubbles going, which is a really good indication that everything worked out well. Also, we can see about an inch worth of foam head on the top of our wort here, and that's caused from the CO2 bubbling up through the beer, and it creates a nice foam at the top. And at the very bottom here, we can see a little bit of the sediment that started to settle down into the beer. Right here at this very bottom edge. And that's going to help clear up the beer. About 3 more days, this is going to be beer. And then I'm going to transfer it into one of these smaller secondary fermenters